Welcome back to another episode of Beyond Coaching. We have a part two of an episode from a while back where Dustin and I had a conversation about does winning matter. And shortly after the release of that episode, I heard from my good friend from the 3D Institute, Mitch Hull, who said a few things via email and asked a question and then got more than he bargained for. And I responded and said, "Hey, this sounds like a podcast episode. Let's have a conversation." So, Mitch, thanks for joining me today.
Well, I appreciate, Rob, that you looked at this and saw this as what it was intended to be, a supporting of the that podcast on winning is it important?
Yeah. Well, you took it a few ways that I hadn't thought about. I was like, man, that's right on. So, um, one thing in your email you mentioned, we'd start here was, I mean, you were competing at the highest level into your late 20s and winning mattered. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but winning mattered more, but it still wasn't enough. Kind of talk through what you were thinking with that statement, and we'll start there.
Yeah, and so that people understand, I wrestled until I was 27 years old. I finished in 1984 in the Olympic trials, and I took second in the trials, which that gets you a handshake, is what it does, because we only take the champion. He ended up winning the gold medal that year, uh, and I tell people, is you talk about is winning important, and I'm going, I, I was 27. I didn't wrestle, try to make the Olympic team, be on U.S. World Team. I didn't do it to participate. Right, that wasn't the motive. It was to make the team. It was to represent the United States. And I failed at my goal. I go, which it doesn't make you a failure. This is the kind of conversations I like to have. Most of us, I'd be willing to say, and I don't care what sport you're in, most of us end our career on a loss. If you really start to think about, only those that win the state championship and stop in high school end on a win, right? As we keep going on, professional athletes, unless you win the Super Bowl and retire, most of them end up, not accomplishing what they want. That doesn't make it, you may fail at this, but it doesn't make you a failure. It's the perspective. Well, I think about it? I think about it all the time. You know, I just had a conversation I with a friend of mine, Rider College. Uh, I'm actually a trivia question in Rider College. It is, uh, who did Luda Serafino beat in the round of 16 or in the quarterfinals at the NCAA tournament to become Ryder's first All American? And it was me, right? I'm part of the Rider Wrestling Club now. I've actually given more to Rider Wrestling than anybody else. My dreams being shattered, I say. And but it's only I look back and I say, so what would have happened if I'd have won? What would have happened if I'd been the national champion? What would have happened if I was the Olympic champion? That's a great question because I'll take it to another athlete, Jordan Burroughs, who's an Olympic champion, multiple time world champion. In fact, in 2012, his Twitter handle is this: all I see is gold. And he won the gold medal that year. And then later on, that about 6 months later, I got to be there when he gave his first testimony about his Christian faith at a church. And he did it in Colorado Springs. And basically he said this, my Twitter handle was all I see is gold. I won the gold medal. And 2 weeks later, I woke up and I was still Jordan Burroughs. People, it's what you do. It cannot be who you are. So and that doesn't mean it's not important, right? It is important, but it cannot be essential because eventually all it will be is something that you hang on the wall or you put in a drawer is the method. It's something that was done at a point in time. It's what you did. And what you have to learn, it cannot be who you are. Who you are has to be big.
How do you agreed? But to achieve at that level, it has to be so so consuming. Now talk about how you balance that. I mean, it just seems so hard.
And sometimes you don't very well
Yeah.
because here's the thing is that, um, and this is what we talk about too, is that these are goal driven individuals. And I spent 20 years as the national teams director around people for 6 Olympic Games, not just in wrestling, but in a lot of sports that they were going to be the Olympic champion. And goal driven life sometimes is very simple, because what goals do is they do this. They make your focus like this. So all this stuff outside, if it's not helping me get to where I want to go, I don't do it. Cool. But the problem with goals is this: they narrow your focus. You don't see a bigger picture. It's just everything is so encompassing. And
Yeah.
which is why in the Olympic level, we deal with something that's very real, whether people win or they don't. It's called post Olympic depression because everything was focused on this and it's over. Now, who am I? That's the problem. Instead of it being what I do at this level, it becomes who I am. And identity, when it comes to your identity, it is very difficult.
Yeah, that reminds me of, sometimes when I speak to groups, I often work in this Tom Brady clip from 60 Minutes, where it was probably 10 years into his career, and there was a question of, like, "Do you wake up and you've done this, like, what's next?" And he had what I took as a very poignant moment. He goes, "Yeah," he goes, "I've had all this stuff, won Super Bowls, married a supermodel." He goes, "I still wake up in the morning and say, God, there has to be more than this." And, and it's just, yeah, yeah, you see people at that level, and I think there's a lot of emptiness.
Yeah. And in fact, it goes into the idea of um, success versus significance. This is what the problem is.
Yeah,
There's nothing wrong with success, but understand its limitations because what it is, success is about goals, significance is about purpose. Goals are a destination, significance is a journey. And here's the thing: when you accomplish a goal, it's rewarding. We all feel good, even if it's to go out and I'm gonna run 2 miles in under 15 minutes, and somebody does it. You feel good. You accomplished a goal. But significance, okay, is not just it's not rewarding. It's fulfilling. When you make a difference in somebody, that laugh, it's a fulfilling feeling. So, and the problem with success, it's rewarding, but it's temporary. I mean, I watched Nick Saban one time on an interview just after they won the national championship, and he's complaining because he's behind in recruiting. Right? I was in an elevator when Oklahoma State won the national championship before the in wrestling before the finals. I'm in an elevator with Oklahoma State people. I'm saying, "Hey, congratulations!" And they're going, "Yeah, we're already trying to figure out how we're going to win it next year." You know, it is it is the feeling is temporary, but it's
mhm.
lasting when it's significant. And then we go to this because how many championships are enough? How many conference, how many state, how many national, how many Olympic golds, how many are enough? And there's research on this. And the research is clear. It's this. How many are enough? One more. One more. It will never be
Yeah.
enough. And Dan Gable has said this. It was well over a decade or more ago. Gable said one time, who's one of the great wrestling coaches, he's an icon. And and he goes, when you win a wrestling tournament, they ought to give you a green banana and take that banana to school, show your buddies, take a picture of it, send it off to grandma and grandpa, put that green banana on your mantle. And when it turns black, It's time to win another banana. It'll never be enough. And so we have to
Never be
change
enough.
our focus, is what we try to help people do, and to focus on significance and let success be the byproduct.
Yeah. So talk about give some people some practical ideas of how you develop significance. And I'll say one more thing. I just got done reading a book by Steve Magnus called "Win the Inside Game," and he looks at high performers. And so he had a quote in there I like of we need to care deeply, but not in a way that we lose control, because essentially that's when you become the Barry Bonds or the Mark McGuire or the Elizabeth Holmes, whatever it may be, where you're so after one thing you lose sight of everything else, including your integrity. So, what is and I know there's a faith element for me and you in this, but what are the talk about pursuing significance and what that can look like?
Yeah, and thanks for that question, because it's like is that most all of us in life go through four stages. It's survival, stability, success, then significance, right? And it's hard to focus on significance at times when you're just trying to survive or trying to build a program to stability and that. But um, we have to. What I'm going is people want to talk about how do we redefine success, and I always go, and it's language doesn't make anything right or wrong. I go, I think success is defined well, right? We can measure. I don't
Mhm.
want you to redefine success. I want you to focus on being significant, right? Because we're trying to redefine what success is, which in effect is saying we want to be significant. And so the idea is this, and I steal this from an athletic director who I heard say this one time, a very good AD who's been a successful in programs, but he said, I try to hire coaches who are significant. He said, because it's hard to be significant and not be successful, but you can be successful and never be significant. And I don't have to explain that. Not to anybody
Yeah.
listening, they know what I'm saying. So how do we do that? That's a great question. And that's what I love doing, is to getting with coaches and saying, first of all, it's this. Understanding is the basis of care. We need to understand uh, what this is about, and it's pretty simple. In effect, I tell people I can sum up our entire training, the 4.5 hour certification course, which is we've had thousands of coaches go through. We've gotten like a 4.7 on a 5 point scale of responses, and I go,
I've done it. I've done it multiple times. It's phenomenal.
yeah, yep, and I go,
Yeah.
I can sum it up in two words: build relationships. There, we're done. Okay. Now, we also have to help people understand why you want to build them and the power in that, and then how. It's like telling some kid, hey, you need to be a leader now, and we don't tell them what that is. So they might think that's being the boss, right? And we have to tell them to be a leader and then explain it. It's like, as Simon Sinek greatly states, um, as a leader, you're not in charge. You're responsible for those in your charge. So it's a
Mhm.
servant mentality. How can I help people focus on significance? First of all, you got to determine your purpose. You have to why are you coaching? It's in I tell them, why do I coach? I want to use sport to help young people to understand the values and give them the tools to have a life of significance. That's why I coach. Then I'll give you now you want to know what my goals are. Well, those will change year to year based on the personnel.
Yeah.
Does it? And by the way, I do not want to downplay the importance of winning, the importance of teaching your
Mhm.
sport, because you can't have significance if you can't teach your sport. You have no credibility. So that is a given. That is, we all have to be good at that, but that's not where our issues lie. And so this is the start is give me your purpose. And if you want to build relationships, tell people your story. And those are the two things that are uniquely yours, and you need to share them. And I'll give here's my the other part is I say, if you're going to give them your story, do it in 45 seconds. You know, now if they want to learn more, they can talk to you later. And
Mhm.
here's and as example, here's my story. I say I would be up in front. I'd say most of you know I competed longer than most people until 27, and yet I'm like most everybody else. I failed at my goal. Doesn't make me a failure, but I failed at my goal to be on the U.S. Olympic team. But if you were to ask me, would you do it all over again, even if you knew the result would be the same? I would tell you in a heartbeat, because it's not just about the destination. The journey matters. And what I learned about myself, the friends I made, the experiences I had, that's the kind of experience I want for your son or daughter on their journey through sport. That's it. That's my story.
That's nice.
Do you think I just got a little more margin with parents when they learn a bit about who I am and then they hear my
Absolutely.
my purpose? That's why those two matter. And you know what? The next guy could get up. My assistant coach could get up and go, "Hey, everybody knows I was a pretty good athlete. Some people would say really successful in high school. And I went to practice. I did what the coaches said, but I never did anything extra. I never got out of my comfort zone. And before I knew it, my career was over and I have regrets. That's not what I want for your son or daughter. Which story's better? Neither. It's just your story.
Mhm.
I I I now I know something about that individual, and I'm gonna give them a little more margin as they have influence on my son and daughter. That's the start. And I can give you then I can give you tools. There's plenty of tools.
Let me ask you this. This might be a good place to wrap up. Dustin, my partner in the Impactful Coaching Project, we've had this long debate since we were both coaching together at a school where it was really hard to win. We used to always think winning will lead to more impact because we have more credibility, more whatever, and people will listen more. Do you think winning can matter because it allows you to lengthen or increase your impact on others?
Clearly, winning makes it simpler in a way.
Mhm.
It doesn't always make it better. Right? Is that it's how you go about it. Um, I talked to a guy a week ago, literally, who said that his high school beat DeMath. It was DeMath out there. It was for 2 years. They beat these power, and they had a coach who was a Bill Parcells disciple on defense. He could teach it. In fact, he taught it in clinics and that. And the guy he was stern. He was technical. Sometimes he was demeaning, but he was extremely successful. We had a 20-year reunion, and over the half of the guys never even bothered to talk to him, right? He was successful, but he wasn't significant. As if
Yeah.
all you care is about is success about the first dimension, I tell people you can win, but you'll have a trail of damaged relationships.
Mhm.
So in the end, what do you want people to remember? Because we don't, and I can ask you the same thing. When you think back, it's about the experiences, the relationships. The winning and losing is just part of sport. I mean, that is, in fact, here's the reality. There will be exactly the same number of winners as there are losers. I don't care how many games you play. Hey, All we're doing is rearranging the deck, but
Yeah.
everybody can have influence.
And that's where I feel a tension in my work as an athletic director. I told my wife recently I'm embarrassed how much I still care about winning and losing, and how I'll drive home at night ticked off when we lose, and I wish I could stay above it a little more. And the tension I feel, though, is I see the most life change or growth when teams have bad years. And the kids that stick with it and the coach leads well through that, it's not as fun, but maybe more valuable than a championship season. And I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah, it is. Listen, I just was at a club volleyball games this weekend and sat there with a parent was nervous about this game to get in the gold division or the silver, and I going, nobody will care tomorrow who wins this tournament. And yet, even me sitting there when I saw a girl miss hit 3 balls in a row, I'm going, "Ugh," and I'm catching myself
Uh,
because we all
yeah.
care about it, but we have to keep it in the best we can in perspective. That is why, even and I mentioned to you this when we first started the conversation. So I go, what does the Bible have to say about this? No. And in Corinthians, Paul may be talking to the original Olympic Games when it's and he stated, um, do you not know that all the runners in the stadium race, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. They're telling us if we're going to compete, you compete to win. You run. Now, there's more than just this, but you compete to win. But it never told us how important winning is. That's the thing. It tells you how to do it and the best way. And so we have to look at this. And I go with youth. How important is it? Well, it goes into the not category, right? As you get
Mhm.
older, it goes into the not very. And eventually varsity, it goes into the kind of important to important. And when I was trying to make the Olympic team, it was extremely important, but it can never be ultimate because when it's ultimate,
Mhm.
you will do anything to achieve it. And then later, you're going to look back and, um, there's been many Olympic champions that never got caught that cheated that eventually said they cheated because they couldn't live with it.
Yeah.
That's why we have to help people as coaches. Goals narrow your focus, and you'll do anything to accomplish something. We have to help them understand there's a bigger purpose.
I don't know if there's a better spot to end than right there. That's well said. Thanks for joining me. I think there may be another conversation building off this in the future, but just really appreciate you taking the time.
Well, I appreciate it too, Rob, and I do look forward to future conversations.
Great. Take care. Thank you for listening to another episode of Beyond Coaching. Beyond Coaching is a podcast developed and produced by the Impactful Coaching Project with the support of Friends University. The Impactful Coaching Project seeks to develop coaches that coach the whole person and is the thought leader in coaching the 21st century athlete. The Impactful Coaching Project produces training, information, and research to help coaches improve. To see more information, go to impactfulcoachingproject.substack.com. Thank you.